Hello.
Hey.
Hi guys, I'm gonna wait for like 1 more minute. I know some people are logging in.
Okay.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Michelle from MicroCAD marketing team. Today's webinar will go over the great Revit plugin Enscape. I believe a lot of you already know Enscape. In this webinar, you'll learn more about Enscape 3.0 and what it can do for you. Before we begin, we'll just have one quick poll for you. I'll give you about like 20 seconds to answer the question and we'll move on to the presentation. Okay. The answer is a little surprising. We have about 40% people are not really familiar or using Enscape. 5% unfamiliar. Okay, I'll give you 10 more seconds. If anyone just logged in, please look at your screen. There's a poll question. Okay. Okay, I am gonna close the poll. We have 90% people voted. 40% of these attendees are not really familiar with Enscape. So this is a great opportunity to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, just a reminder that you can ask your questions in the question panel and we'll answer them at the end. If you're not familiar with MicroCAD and want to know what MicroCAD can do for you, please feel free to visit our website or give us a call. So now I'll go ahead and hand this over to the Enscape expert, Dan and Josh, who will talk about Enscape and show us a live demo.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate it. My name is Dan Monahan, and I'm the business leader for Enscape here in the Americas. And with me today, I have Josh Rattle. Josh is the head of our customer support and training team here in the United States. We're super excited to be here today to talk to you about Enscape 3.0. I know that a lot of you are new. The presentation that we prepared today is really maybe geared more towards existing customers who are familiar with Enscape. We're going to review some of the interface changes that we've made, some of the new features and capabilities that we added. But we'll be doing more webinars. And of course, after today's webinar, if you have any questions about Enscape, or if you'd like to get an introduction or a personal demonstration, just follow up with MicroCAD after today's session. Before we get started, I just want to let you know of some useful resources that we've put together to help you get up and running in Enscape 3.0. First, if you have any questions about Enscape, a great source is our knowledge base. With a simple keyword search, you can find some great answers to your Enscape questions. Also, to stay in the know about the latest news, please subscribe to the Enscape blog. It's a really great resource. And lastly, we're continuing to work on producing new on-demand video training content, and you'll find some great content on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, please do. These are some really excellent resources that you could use to begin to explore and learn more about Enscape. Now, in regards to Enscape 3.0, one of the first things you'll notice about Enscape is our new look. If you've been on our website or social media sites, you've already experienced the new branding. Enscape 3.0, it represents really not only an evolution of our product, which Josh will talk about, but also our company, which you'll see reflected in the new look and really a renewed commitment to all of our users. The new brand reflects Enscape's successful journey from really a fast-growing startup to the leading real-time rendering technology for Revit. With Enscape 3.0, our focus was really on improving the user experience, making real-time 3D and virtual reality easier and more accessible. And that improvement extends to everything we do, from our website to your interactions with our support team and of course, the product itself. This theme is also reflected in our mission. So we have a new mission to unleash the creativity of builders of tomorrow through continuous innovation in accessible design technology. And you can see that I really wanted to hit on this word accessible. For us, accessibility is really part of the core DNA that makes up Enscape. Today, in many firms, visualization and rendering is a task relegated to specialists using specialty software. And our goal with Enscape really is to democratize rendering and visualization, to make it easy and accessible for everyone on the design and construction team so they can use this new technology to improve their part of the design process. And with this also comes a new vision to make the built environment tangible before it exists. And this is a bit of a tall order, admittedly, but there's something that we're always trying to pursue. Buildings are getting more and more complex, schedules are getting shorter. I think everyone here can recognize that. And we recognize that the challenges that this puts on the entire design and delivery team and on the communities that we build in and we build for. So we really want to bring as holistic of an understanding as possible to the design. So we want to understand all aspects of the design before it's actually built, before we actually commit to making it a permanent contribution to our environment. Now, Josh is going to take you through all of the new features in version 3.0, but I wanted to highlight some of my favorite improvements and how these strategies are playing into the features and how we think about them as we start to build our product roadmaps. First is the evolution of the design environment and the interface. This is something that we wanted to do for a very long time, and it's something that our community has been asking for. Like our rebrand, the new interface in Enscape 3.0 is more about just changing the new look. It's really about improving the Enscape user experience. We started with a focus on the user, and we really tried to understand how people are working with Enscape. And we did this at a high level by looking at some usage data. We also engaged with our customers and also just listening to what people were telling us and posting on the Enscape forums or writing into the support team. A lot of consideration was given to the workflows and how we could streamline tasks to make them easier and faster. For example, we've moved many of the controls from the modeling program to the Enscape window so you can use Enscape in a full screen mode as much as possible, and to really mitigate or eliminate the switching back and forth between the CAD program and Enscape as much as possible, which is a really refreshing user experience. The second exciting new features are really the localized assets. We have users designing projects all over the world, and providing them the right assets lets them contextualize their designs and allows them to tell their stories in the way that they need. You'll find about 333 new assets focused on really iconic or specific assets to local regions, such as like the well-known taxi cab in New York or the famous phone booth, red phone booth in London. You'll also find new trees and flowers and shrubs that are typical to various hardiness zones throughout the world. And the new assets are performing really beyond what we expected. We're seeing, in some cases, a 40 times better performance compared to similar assets provided by our competition. And last but not least is one of my favorite new features. It's not really a feature of the program itself, but really is our website. It's the best way that we're communicating the benefits that we offer. It's where we engage with our community. And the news site is a fantastic resource for all of you out there, whether you're an existing Enscape user or you've never seen it before. It's a real one-stop shop for all things Enscape. And going back to that point of accessibility, the new website makes learning about Enscape and keeping connected easier and really more tangible. And with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Josh and ask Josh to walk us through some of the new features in Enscape 3.0.
Thanks, man.
All right, Josh.
All right, need to make me presenter quick.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Show screen. Can you see my screen okay?
I can.
Awesome. I'll stop sharing my webcam too, just so we can get some good graphics quality here. All right. So if everybody can see my screen okay, what we're going to look at is obviously Enscape and how it plays into Revit. So Enscape's a plugin. It sits on top of your ribbon once you install it. So you won't be able to find it on your desktop or anything like that because it's a plugin. So once you install it, it'll live on top of your Revit ribbon up here. So you can see it'll be traditionally right next to my Add tab. So this is the toolbar that comes with Enscape. So we're going to see in a second here, whatever I have in my 3D view is what's going to be shown up in Enscape. So for those that don't know how to get a Revit model into Enscape, all I'm going to do is simply hit the start button right here. And then it's going to pop up over in Enscape, and this is exactly where it's going to look like right from the start. It popped me up right where I launched my scene from. So to start off, we're going to just go through some of the features that still live over in the design application. Previously, there was a couple extra buttons in 2.9 that lived over here, but to help streamline with our new vision, get you guys working faster, minimize the amount of clicks you have to do, we streamlined this a little bit. We took some of the buttons from the design application side and brought them over to the Enscape window itself. So the first one we have here, this one's proprietary to simply Revit. This is where we're going to render an image into document. So we can go over to Enscape, find that nice view that we want. We can hit render, and it's going to stick it over here in our renderings tab here. So then we could put it on our title sheets. We can even launch it from there. Our asset library still stayed the same. This is where we would this is where we have all those 333 new assets plus more. We'll dive into this a little bit more. It loaded up here on my other screen real quick. There we go. So we can see here, here's all of our Enscape assets. It comes with close to 2,500 different assets. They're broken out by different categories. Again, the biggest part of Enscape is real-time model feedback. So whatever I'm changing or adding inside of the Enscape or inside of Revit, it'll auto show us in Enscape. We'll get to that in a second. Our manage uploads is still over in the design application. This is where we can, take QR codes, take 360 panoramas, and for our web standalones, this is where we'll access all those. These are still over here in the design application. Same with our sound sources because we're placing those inside of the Revit model itself. And then in our general settings tab, this is where we have some information about the performance of Enscape, how it's playing well. This is where you can also access your license files as well. So if you have a floating license or a fixed seat license, you can see all the information about that here as well. Our general feedback button, this is where I have it would default to support at enscape3d.com. I was doing a quick test, so this is my coworker. So if you run into a crash with Enscape, this is where you fill out exactly kind of what happened. Hey, I ran into a crash, and this log files. This will send us information about what happened during the crash. So it'll help us better assist you on figuring out what happened and how we can resolve it. And then our about button is still over here as well. This tells you what version of Enscape you're on. And you can check for new version as well to make sure you're always on the latest updated version. All right, so that's stuff that stayed in the design application. Let's look at what is over in the Enscape window now. So over in the Enscape viewer, normally this would come our help menu. This is one thing that's new. Normally it would be down here across the bottom of my viewer, but now it's its own separate tab over here. So this gives us a better way to see how to navigate around Enscape. So if anybody's played computer video games or navigated around on like an interactive web page, it's going to use the WAS and D keys to move around. So for those that aren't too familiar, I'm using my left mouse click as basically controlling my head. I'm going to push W to move forward, A to move left, D to move back, right, S to move backwards. And we can see here exactly how we're navigating around. So it's a very easy way to navigate and explore a model. We wanted to give everybody a lot of information about the different navigation controls, relatively easily accessible. I personally have forgot a couple of these, so when I saw these, I was like, oh, hey, that's what those keys did. So again, being able to change the time of day, holding down Shift and right mouse click and scrubbing my mouse left, I can change the time of day. Again, for those that don't know, this is just holding down Shift and right mouse click, and I can see what my model is looking like through all different times of day. A really, really helpful feature now is this Get Help menu right here. So like Dan mentioned earlier, we have a knowledge base. It's popping up over here on my other monitor that is hyperlinked. So if you run into any questions or you kind of forget what a curtain feature did or a tool set did, definitely check out our knowledge base. It's a phenomenal resource for a lot of great information about everything that's going on inside of Enscape. And again, it's broken out too, if you have questions about material and lighting, it is broken out too by design application specific. So you can see we support SketchUp, Rhino, ArchiCAD, Vectorworks, and obviously Revit. The other really great resource is our forum. I really encourage you guys to go check out our forum if you get a chance, because it is a phenomenal resource to be able to find information. If you have a specific question, more than likely it's been asked before on our forum, and it's a great community where we have active users constantly helping each other out too. So it's really cool to see, and they're all from different parts of the world, so it's even better. We also have some really great design inspirations on our showcase for users love to submit work that they've done, and we encourage that too, because we love to see what you guys are doing and creating with Enscape. Again, too, this is also broken up by application specific as well. And again, we have a tips and tricks and tutorials. And if you guys see a feature that you really think would be cool, feel free to put in our features request. And same with assets. If you see an asset that's not in there, definitely feel free to reach out and let us know what you think. Another really big feature is this home mode. So this is context specific. This is something that wasn't there before. So whatever mode I'm clicking on, information about that specific feature is going to be pulled up over here. So if you kind of forget what that feature did or do want some more information about it, have the help menu open, have this section open, and then you'll be able to see all the information about it. To close that, I'm simply just going to hit escape out of there and go back to this home. All right, so now we're going to look at some of the buttons that are up top here. Home mode is exactly what it means. It's home mode. So we're just freely navigating around the model right now. We have our collaborative annotations tab now, which is displayed over here. Previously, you had to right click and then hit create issue. You can still do that, but now it's its own little button. So for those that don't know what this tab means, this is essentially where I can, again, navigate around my model, and then I can create an issue. Say I want different chairs here. I can say add different chairs. Spelled chairs wrong. So I'll get called on that one. But so I can click inside here. I can add a description to it. I can change the state of it as well. I can go back to it. And what we're seeing here is it's going to create this little marker for me right here. So now if I hit save, if I'm working on a local model, this is where all these issues that I've created will save to the local model. So the next user that is working on the model can load it up. You can see the issues I've created, or I can even export these as a BCF file. I can pass those off to the other designer. They can be working on it as well and see all those issues, and we can collaborate together. Or if you're using Bim Track, there is an option here to sync your issues to Bim Track and be able to view them all and make adjustments accordingly via Bim Track. Next up is our Bim Mode. So this was previous in 2.9 as well. We just moved the button over to the design or over to the Enscape window. So what this is going to do is whatever I click on inside of the Enscape viewer, piece of glass, the side of this house, it's going to pull all that BIM information from the properties panel in Revit. So again, this was still in 2.9, but we just moved it over here to the Enscape viewer. This view management tab and the video editor, these are two big overhauls, and there's some really new features in here. So we'll look at those in a second in a little bit more detail. So to produce a rendering, it's called Take Screenshot. Previously, this was back in the design application. So if you were only working on one monitor or a laptop, you would have to switch back and forth to Revit, take the screenshot, and then produce the render. Now it's all living inside of the Enscape window, and it's very fast still. For those that don't know, Enscape's probably by far one of the fastest rendering engines out there. Literally with this take screenshot, this would probably take maybe 3 seconds to do. We also have the option still for batch rendering. So this is where you could set up, say, views, and we could hit batch render, and it would render a series of images one right after another. So again, this just moved over here to the Enscape window. When I was talking about that manage uploads feature, I was talking about panoramas. This is where you would produce these panoramas. So we have the option to do a mono and stereo panorama. So this is where we could go to a certain spot of the model, generate one of these panoramas, and then we could upload it to the Enscape cloud. If we're doing the stereo one, we have the option to tie it to a QR code still. So somebody could scan the QR code on their phone or their tablet, and they could pull up a 360 rendering of whatever view I showed them. We've seen some users that utilize this as well by embedding these on a PDF. So when they send them to their client, they could, instead of doing the QR code, they could click the link, and then it takes them to a web 360 panorama. Those are also great for marketing purposes as well, because you can embed those on your website as well. So how I'm navigating around, changing the time of day, freely exploring my model, this brings up the executable file. So we still have two versions of a standalone. So we have the exe file, which is essentially going to take and bundle up my Enscape model right here. It's going to kick out what we call an exe file. So I can give this to a client. They don't have to have Revit, Enscape installed on their machine to be able to double click on this and view it. So this is a great way to share this full 3D model with your client and have them be able to walk around. They can change the time of day. The only thing they're going to lose is the ability to make changes in Revit and have it sync, because it's not directly tied to Revit right now. It's just its own standalone application. The web feature is essentially the same thing, except being a standalone playable game, essentially, I can view this whole thing on the web. So once I click export web standalone, it'll export it, and I can access those again through our manage uploads back in the design application. And it's a simple web link. I can literally just copy and send to my client, and they can navigate around the model. So that's the left-hand side of the Enscape window. Now over here on the right-hand side, we have another way to navigate around. It's called our mini map feature, which again, it was just a simple window that was over here on the left-hand side. Now it's its own little tab up here. See, it popped up over here. If some user is not comfortable navigating around using the W, A, and D keys or arrow keys, they have this mini map feature to where I can click on any part of the model, and it'll take me over to that part of it. So again, I can close this. Let me back out here real quick to show you this next part. The next part is, it's a very handy and much overlooked feature. So previously when we were taking screenshots, it was kind of hard to get the final idea of what the crop regions of our render would look like. So before, we had to go back, hit take screenshot, and then if I had show save frame on, it would ask me to confirm, yes, this is exactly what I wanted, because a lot of times it was the model was zoomed in, So we really couldn't get a good idea of what our final render would look like. So if we check this show save frame button right up here now, this is going to show me exactly what is going to be in my final still rendering. And this is determined by over here in our visual settings tab. We can see right here, this is what's going to be in my 1920 by 1080 window. And a really powerful feature is if I have to do a customized one, we'll say like 1080 by 1080, it'll show me exactly what this context is going to be. So then I can adjust accordingly. So I can know exactly what my final output image is going to look like here. So let me just put that back to full HD here. All right. And again, I can simply just turn this off by clicking, and now I'll go back to full screen. The next part that we have here is this own little button. So we have three different options. We have perspective, which I'm currently in. We have 2-point perspective and orthographic mode. Again, these were previously at 2.9, but it was just a little floating window over here. Now I have the option, I can still toggle between them. I can hit multiple different key options, 4, 5, 8, 6, and 2 on my number pad. And again, it'll still take me to the front, top, left, back, and right. That's when I'm in orthographic mode. Perspective mode is just going to keep all the vertical line or all the horizontal lines vertical. Same with our different walk modes here. It's its own tab now up here. Previously it was down here in the Enscape viewer. So right now I'm in fly mode. So what fly mode means is I can literally fly through anything in the scene. I can fly through walls. You know, I can act like I'm Superman. The minute I either hit walk mode or spacebar on my computer, if I hit spacebar on my keyboard, now it's automatically going to set up colliders for everything in the scene. So now I can't walk through walls or anything like that. So I'm going to walk like I'm a normal person. And when I walk upstairs, it's going to give me that step effect, kind of like how I actually would be stepping upstairs. Again, I can hit spacebar or go back up here and toggle that. This next feature, again, this was back in our design application. This is our enable VR button. So Enscape is by far probably one of the fastest and best quality VR rendering engines out there. So literally just by clicking this button, if I had a VR headset set up, I would be able to be inside of virtual reality. For those that have never been in virtual reality before, it is a phenomenal way to show your customers their model and have them experience it at a one-to-one scale. There's just something about looking at a blueprint and not being able to think on what the final output's going to look like. So if you can show them just this Enscape viewer as a 3D model and then be able to put them into virtual reality where they can actually be sitting at their kitchen table or be sitting in their living room right here and be able to look around and experience their design at a one-to-one scale. And what's even better is since it's a real-time rendering engine that's tied to Revit, I can see exactly what the customer is seeing. And if they say, hey, let's move this chair or this couch, let's just do that right here. So I can be over in the floor plan view. So I'll go to level 1. Let's just say they don't want that couch. I can, okay, I'll delete the couch. I'll delete this furniture, and we can see it's real-time updating. So again, they don't have to be in virtual reality for that to happen. Again, whatever you're designing and changing in Revit, Enscape is just automatically going to show it for you. That's where the real power comes in. Now over in our visual settings, this is where we have total control over everything about the image and the exports of Enscape. So we have a couple different modes. We have the white mode, which turns everything in the scene completely white. A lot of times when we're designing, we're not at the point yet where we want to show materiality to our customers. So we just want to literally show them the structure of it. So that's where this white mode comes into play. Same with Polystyrene Mode, gives it just more of a foam core look. Light view, for those that don't know, if I hold down shift and right mouse click, I can see where all my hotspots are at all different times of the day. So it'll give you a good representation. It won't give you actual, it'll give you a good guesstimation on, hey, this is a spot to look at for more lighting analysis. So again, this is where we have total control over the sky, the atmosphere, the background images as well. So we can do a forest, we can do a desert, and we also have the option using the skybox to import our own if we so choose to. And then also I talked about the output settings. All those stayed in the visual settings tab over here for our different render exports. A new feature that has, not a new feature, but a feature that moved over to the Enscape window and has its own tab now is the render window settings. So we can see up here, I have the Enscape icon and the name of the project. Back in 2.9, we can still do this, but it was in the general settings tab back in the design application. So now it has its own separate tab here. This means I can sit here and change this test. Again, if I'm doing an executable file and want to get our marketing team involved, we can call it the title of the project. I can change the loading screen too. So when I first launch Enscape, when I pass this executable file off to our customer, the first time they launch it, it's going to show this Enscape loading screen. But again, for more marketing purposes and branding opportunities, you can change that up and you can add whatever image you would like in there. That's simply a click of a button. So if I do a really nice render of a project, I can just add that in here. And again, once they launch the executable file, that's the first thing they're going to see. And then I can even change the company logo too as well. So again, more further branding opportunities. So again, I can turn all that off. Then we also have some different settings for if you find the navigation speed is too much or too slow, you can adjust this accordingly. Same with spectator height. And then enable sound sources for when we play sound sources and such. All right, so that's where all the buttons are laid out now, and that's for some of our new users, that's kind of an overview of what they do. So let's look at the two features that received more attention. So our new view management tab here. So this is pulling all of the different views that were previously created in Revit. So we could see here it's pulling from these 3D views that I have set up. We've all had the pain and struggle of inside of Revit trying to get that perfect view. So we all know that can be kind of hard to do or try to get that right shot. So what we can do in here is I can navigate to a certain spot of my model. Okay, let's do this right here. So now what I can do, I can hit this create view button. I can call it chair view. I'm just going to call it chair. And we see it created a new view over here. I also created a new view over my active documents. So I can feel free to launch Enscape from one of those different views over here. Now, the biggest thing here is its visual presets. So let me full screen this again. So by visual presets, this is where I can set up different shots and different feelings and different moods, different image enhancement settings for each of my shots. Previously, I'd have to go back to the design application, change up a couple things, do a couple extra clicks, and then they would only show up during batch rendering. I won't be able to see them live. So what I mean by this is, let's just show you. So here, I'm going to go to my 3D view here. I'm going to go over to my visual settings, and let's create a new preset here. So to get to the preset, I just hit this little arrow button right here to the left. So I'm going to hit new preset. I'm going to call this white mode. So I'm just going to hit save, and I'm going to say, you know what, I want to give this, some outlines. I want to give it a stylistic look to it. And whatever mode I'm in here, any change I make, it's going to auto save. So that's something to be mindful of. So now let's say I want to go over and apply my white mode I want to apply to my section view. So I'm going to go hit edit. I'm going to hit white mode here. I'm going to hit save. And now let's say I want to do a light view in my solar analysis. So I'm going to hit new preset. I'm going to hit light view. And I'm going to hit mode light view. And we can see light view is turned on. I'm going to change the light view mode, apply that one to that one. I'm going to go back to default here. And now when I switch between the different ones, whatever visual settings I have set up are being applied to those views. And this goes for as well too. Here, let's go back to my chair view. We'll set up we'll make a custom one here. So let's go chair, but I want to adjust some things about this. I want to put a background in here. So let's go back to, this is going to be look like I'm in the middle of the mountains. I want to adjust the field of view here, kind of give it a nice looking feel to it. I can adjust the depth of field too. So this focal point, you can see that white line. Whatever's in focus there is going to be in focus. With depth of field, whatever's not in focus is going to be blurred. And again, this is all being applied to my chair preset. So I can go back to the different modes and we can see whatever view is enabled. Oh, I forgot to add my chair view to that. So we'll hit chair, we'll save. Section, solar analysis. So we can see flipping between all of those is going to give so this is where we can start doing more presentation, setting up different presets for the different shots here. All right, let's go back to default here. All right, now let's talk about the next pretty big enhancement here. So I'll go back to my 3D view, and that's our video editor. So with our video editor, you had to go back to the design application, you had to hit enable video editor. Now it received a whole new UI overhaul. So with the video editor, what I can do is here, let's get a nice shot going. So we can see, to set the first keyframe, I'm going to hit this plus button right here. So I'm going to hit plus. Whoop, too fast. And then let's say I want a shot right here. So I'm going to hit plus on my keyboard. And now if I move over here real quick, you can see it's drawn out my camera path here. And notice down here on my timeline, it says 37 seconds. That is my total duration from the first keyframe to the second keyframe so far. If I wanted to slow that down, I can simply adjust that. Well, let's say I just want it to be 25 seconds. Now to preview that, I'm simply just going to hit this preview button right here. And we can see it's starting to preview my animation. If it's running a little slow on your end, that's just the network connection, but it's running perfectly smooth on my machine here. So I can hit stop. If I want to at any time add one in between, I can just click on the timeline here, and now I'm actually inside the keyframe. So now I'm sitting here adjusting that keyframe, and see here, I have this show grid lines. So this is where I can actually frame up my shot on how I want. And I can hit update. And again, I can simply hit P on my keyboard, and it's going to start playing from that keyframe. Or I can start it from the front. And again, now it's simply going to preview my animation that I have created here. A nice little trick that we can do here is we could set up a really nice time lapse if we want. So over here on the left-hand side, we can see I'm on the first keyframe here. So again, first keyframe, I can sit here and adjust the time of day per keyframe. So let's say I'm going to start this one we're going to do AM, let's say 7 a.m. So I'm going to set the time of day, I'm going to hit update, and we can see down here as well in our timeline, whatever changes I'm making, there's going to be a keyframe added to that. So now I can go to my next one, and we can say this is going to be, we'll say 1:30 p.m. I can hit update. I can go over to our last keyframe here. I can do a timestamp, and we'll say this will be 5:30 p.m. and we'll say update. I can go back to the first keyframe here, and now I can hit play. Again, so the clouds are being animated. And if I like what that's doing, I can keep watching it. All right, now if I like how that's looking, I can simply hit this export button right here. And what this is gonna do is this is gonna pop up with our export settings. So I have the option to go, it comes default at full HD, 1920 by 1080. So I have the option to go from full HD to ultra and custom if I need to. I also have, compression quality and frames per second. And then I can hit export. And then from there, it'll give me a nice MP4 file of what my final shot is gonna look like. All right. So that was a couple of our new features and where all the buttons are laid at. Let's go back to the assets real quick so we can show you guys how to place those for those that may not know how to do that. And then we'll open it up for questions here. So let me hold down Shift and right mouse click. Let's get to a better shot here. So over in our asset library here, all right, so let's start adding some trees. So for those in the audience who have played Sims a long time ago, this would be really well familiar. So we can simply click, pick whatever asset we want, let it load up, and now I can start placing trees all the way around our model. I can hit escape twice, and now our trees are showing up. Again, it's that easy to place new and improved assets, or just assets in general of any kind. If you see any that, if you have an idea in mind for one that you don't see in here, we also have the option as well to create custom assets themselves. So you can there's a couple websites where you can go find some custom assets out there. When doing so, please keep in mind that their Enscape specific assets are highly optimized for real-time rendering, like Dan had mentioned earlier. So that's going to refer to in terms of polygon count, just to help for performance. A lot of times when we find things online, they're going to be really high in poly count, so they would need to be optimized for performance just to avoid crashing and give you the best possible performance. But there'll be a little warning that pops up and tells you if the model you have is exceeding that or not. So again, this is where all of our assets are. One little cool helpful hint is once you launch Enscape for the first time and then launch the asset library, they're all being pulled from our server. So to help increase the speed of being able to scroll through these like I am, check this offline assets, Enscape assets button. And what that'll do, that'll download the Enscape assets to your local machine. So instead of pulling them from our cloud, they'll pull them exactly from your local machine. So it'll be optimized for speed that way as well. Again, we have these all broken up by different categories: people, lighting, furniture, construction assets in here as well, animals and accessories. Again, those, you can sit here and apply those. Specific to Revit itself, this is not new to 3.0, but this is where you could take a piece of furniture and you could actually link that Revit family to an asset. So it'll still display in Revit and schedule correctly. It'll keep all the BIM information, but in Enscape, it will show up as a high quality custom 3D asset or Enscape asset. All right. So that was an overview of Enscape and some of the new features and where the buttons have moved to. Dan, you got any closing remarks?
No, thank you very much. I think we have one last polling question, Michelle, if you want to open on the poll. I think you're muted, Michelle.
All right, I just gave you back control, Dan.
Michelle, I think you're still muted. I'm sorry.
Hello. Oh, sorry, I was talking to myself. Thank you, Dan and Josh. I see questions are coming in. Before we move on to the Q&A, I'd like to let you know that you can do a 2-week free Enscape trial by emailing your MicroCAD account manager, and they will guide you through the trial process. So let's look at the first question. Okay, the first question is, what are the licensing options?
That's a really good question, Michelle. I could take that one. So we have a few different licensing options. We have a floating license. This is a license that can be installed on multiple machines, and it can be installed on multiple machines, and then you have a license pool, and so you can use Enscape on any machine, as many machines as you want to, and then it'll just pull the license, and it's a very nice convenience for people that are working on multiple monitors or multiple machines, like a home machine or a work machine, or if they're working in a multi-user environment. We also have a fixed annual license. This is a license that will, as the name suggests, is fixed to a single machine. So this is a good option for kind of smaller firms, maybe consultants that are using one machine all the time. And then that license comes in an annual edition or a monthly edition. So the monthly fixed license is a great way to try the software out for a certain period of time on a project. And then that comes with free support. And then we can assist you with getting up and running in Enscape.
Great. Actually, the same person asked another question.
Sure.
He's asking, what are the system requirements for running Enscape?
Josh, you want to
I'll
take
that one?
Yeah.
Yep, I'll take that one, man. So great question. To run Enscape, we require at least a minimum, since Enscape is GPU rendered engine, you need a dedicated GPU from NVIDIA or AMD, and it needs to be at least a 2 gig minimum card. You can check it out on our knowledge base. There's a spot for system requirements. So again, 2 gig minimum, all the way up to an 8 gig if you're doing VR. So again, but you need to, I cannot stress that enough, you have to have a dedicated GPU. You cannot use just the Intel integrated one. You need a dedicated GPU from NVIDIA or AMD.
Great.
I hope that answers your question.
The next question, why did favorite views become limited to VR presentation mode? Did this feature move somewhere else?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Okay, it's in the question box saying, why did the favorite views become limited to VR presentation mode? Did this feature move somewhere else?
So you can still do favorite views inside of the view management settings. So
Okay.
you have to go into the view and click edit, and then there's a star button up top by the name of it, and that's where you could click favorite. So again, we just moved it over there. I hope that helps answer that question.
Great. Next question. Can you recommend a VR headset?
Great question as well. So on our virtual reality knowledge base section, we have a couple different ones that we recommend. It's the Oculus Rift, the Rift S. Generally, it's best to have it plugged into the GPU directly. Also, the HTC Vive Pro, the Samsung Odyssey, and the Windows mixed reality headset.
Okay. Okay, we'll answer one more question and we'll move on to our last poll question. The last question is, how do I get custom texture and assets into Enscape?
Great question. So for the custom textures, there's a lot of free websites out there that you can find high quality customized textures, or there's a couple programs out there like Photoshop, Substance, to create your own customized textures based off photos. And again, those are all, once you get those material maps, you can insert those into Revit the same way you would apply materials normally. Again, so Enscape's just taking whatever is being put into Revit and displaying as a high quality asset. And then for high quality assets, in the asset library, I showed that custom asset. So in the custom asset, there's a plus button at the start. So you hit that plus button, and that's where you can import your OBJ file, your GLTF file, or your FBX files. And then from there, you add the textures into that model. And then once you click OK, the model will be showing inside of your, it'll be a thumbnail, and then you can just drag and drop those in as well.
Okay, actually, we do have a few minutes, and I'm getting like more questions, so I'll take a few.
Okay.
So this is an interesting one. How long does it take to learn Enscape?
Great question. Usually, so the thing with Enscape that's really, really powerful is if you already know Revit, you're pretty much halfway there to Enscape, or more than halfway there, because Enscape will just take whatever is being shown in Revit and just display it in a prettier viewer. Say maybe an hour, 2 hours tops for some tips and tricks and best practices in there. On our YouTube channel, there is one of our other application engineers, Kai. He did a very good tutorial series, basically from the ground up, how to get started, where all the buttons are at, where they're all laid out. So definitely check that out on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, and then Josh, just to kind of follow that up, if you go to the MicroCAD Enscape page on the MicroCAD website, you'll be able to download a 14-day trial so you can try it out for yourself. But just to spotlight what you said, I think that's an advantage of Enscape, is it's not a standalone program. It's actually plugging into Revit, just extending its capabilities. So if you know how to add a texture or a light in Revit, fundamentally, as Josh said, you already know how to use Enscape. The results are just faster and easier to achieve.
Okay, there's next question. If the customers are currently using Lumion, I think, as their render engine, what would you say to encourage the customer to shift to Enscape?
Ooh, great question.
I mean, I could take this, and I think Lumion and Enscape are, well, we both produce very pretty pictures in the end, some really great visualizations. The main advantage of Enscape is the ability to plug into the design program. So as Josh kind of pointed out in his demonstration, when you're working in Enscape, you're really working in Revit. So as you're adding entourage, as you're adding assets, and you're working in Revit, it's just a natural extension of the Revit workflow. So things schedule correctly, things appear in plan and elevation and section views correctly. With Lumion, the workflow is just slightly different. You're actually working in a standalone program, so you're doing all of your visualization work in Lumion. In Enscape, you're doing all of your visualization work really in setting up the scene in Revit. And that provides a lot of workflow advantages, particularly in the design phases of the project. Oftentimes, what designers need to do is to validate decisions. And so with Enscape, they can quickly set up a 3D view, they can make a design change, and they can instantly see how that change is going to affect their design decisions, and then hopefully get to decision points faster.
Nice. Let's see. One last question. What are the ways to change the location and time of the day? Does it see Revit location?
Great question. Yep. So that's all being derived from Revit. So whatever geolocation you have set up, whatever time of day you have set up, that's all being pulled initially from Revit. Obviously, if you have set up true north, again, that's being all pulled from Revit. So to change the time of day, though, I just held down Shift and right mouse click. That's how you scrub through the time of day. But the location of the sun and the location essentially on Earth is being pulled from Revit.
Well, okay, I'm launching the last poll question. What other webinar would you like to see with Enscape?
That's a good one.
I'm curious to see the answer.
For the poll result, I'd like to remind you all that we have 2 upcoming Revit webinars this month. On Thursday, April 22, we have a What's New in Revit 2022 webinar at 1 p.m. And Tuesday, April 27, we have a new Revit MicroCAD Productivity Tool webinar at 2 p.m. You can go to microcad3d.com and click events on the top navigation bar and register for our upcoming webinars. We also have 2 AutoCAD webinars this month if you are interested. Okay. I'll wait for like 5 more seconds. It seems like people are heavily interested in tips and tricks on material and textures.
Ooh,
That's a good
fun.
Okay.
Yeah. Nearly 80% of people are clicking that option.
All right.
So definitely prepare something like that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I see people keep voting, so I'll wait for it.
Well, the materials and texturing in Enscapes, it's very easy, and it's a really it's a great workflow, particularly with Revit, and it's something that we didn't really cover in this webinar. So I think that should be that's a great one for the next webinar, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea.
No problem. Okay, post. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, John, Josh, and Dan.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.